Well, good afternoon, my friends. This is Blazers Game Day. I am your host, Chad Doing, along with my partner, Chris Burkhardt, a special 2-hour extended version of Game Day today with a tip-off coming up at 6 o'clock in Utah against the Jazz. This is a tournament game, an NBA in-season tournament game for the Trailblazers. And here's what we're going to do over the next 2 hours. Most of it's going to focus in on your Portland Trailblazers and the NBA, but I do want to take some time to talk a little football. So one of the all-time greats, John McClain, is going to join the show coming up at around 4:20. We'll talk some football. We'll get his take on the A&M job. And Dan Lanning will focus in on C.J. Stroud. The Bills firing their offensive coordinator coming off the loss to Denver on Monday Night Football. So a lot of things with John McClain we'll get to. But we're going to focus in on your Portland Trailblazers, who are very competitive this year. And I don't know where you stand right now when it comes to this team, but I was just talking with Burkhardt about this. I couldn't be happier. We are seeing signs of growth in terms of what Chauncey Billups and the staff wants his team to do, especially on the defensive end, where Portland is a top 10 defensive team right now in the NBA. I was curious to see if the defense could continue against better offensive teams like Sacramento and the LA Lakers, and it did. And I think with the youngsters, we're seeing guys go out and compete and make plays. And the best compliment I can give this team, as I have throughout the course of the young season, has been multiple players making multiple contributions on different nights, game-winning plays to try and help this team get over the top. Now, I'm not frustrated by the losses. I'm not overly excited about the wins because, as I've told you going into this year, this season's not about wins and losses for the Portland Trailblazers. And the sooner you understand that and accept the fact that they are retooling, rebuilding, remodeling the entire franchise, you'll understand that right now the most important thing for this team, one, is player development, and two, is to watch the growth game to game, week to week, month to month with Chauncey and his staff, and whether or not he can get the players to play the way he wants them to. And so far, we're seeing signs of life in those departments, which is nice. And that's what I continue to watch and look for. And we're seeing that with the youngsters who are getting a chance to play. Even G League guys who are getting their first taste of action are stepping in and making a contribution, which is really cool. So I'm having a lot of fun this year. It's a different Trailblazer team. It's a young Trailblazer team, and the focus and the evaluation is totally different than what we've had over the last decade. So I'm just sitting back and enjoying watching the group grow, trying to see what Chauncey and his staff can do, and more importantly, I want to see the youngsters continue to elevate their game. Shaden Sharp's been impressive, but he's got a lot of work and room for improvement. Scoot Henderson will be back in about a week and a half off the bone bruise. I want to see him continue to grow. And then for everyone else, just continue to go out there and scrap, grind, and try to put themselves in a position to compete and win games. And they did that. They lose an overtime game in Sacramento against the Kings. And they were one of the best teams in the NBA last year. And on Sunday in LA against the Lakers, they were right there in the fourth quarter, but it slipped through their fingers. And really for LA, they just had the massive advantage of Anthony Davis, who took advantage of his opportunities down low. Portland didn't really have the size to compete against that. And with their aggressiveness, they dominated the foul line and were plus 23 at the charity stripe. And it's hard to overcome that in a game. Portland did shoot the three ball better against the Lakers, but in the end, the Lakers got the win. 116 to 110 was your final. As I mentioned, multiple guys stepped up to make game-winning plays, and Chauncey Billups talked about the loss afterwards. That's great. That's great. Yeah, it was a tough loss. The Blazers, what I like about the performance, they took a 1 point lead into halftime, and then the Lakers really started to assert control on the game. They outscored Portland by 12 in the third, and it looked like the Blazers, the game, it was starting to slip away a bit, but then Portland came out on a 12-2 run to open up the fourth, and they put themselves right back in the game. The Lakers extended the lead to 8, and then a 7-0 run by Portland, once again fueled by the shooting of Jeremy Grant, put the Blazers right in a position to win that game. And the big mistake came late on a turnover from Skylar Mays, and the inability or lack of awareness from both Mays and DeAndre Ayton to track the ball down. I think they thought it was going to roll out of bounds, and then Torian Prince able to step in and get an uncontested layup, which pushed the lead to 5 late in the game, and that kind of was the breaking point for the Trailblazers, unfortunately. Now, one of the guys who had to play big minutes, 33 of them, Skylar Mays, who's getting extended playing time in the absence of Malcolm Brogdon, who's got a hamstring strain. He had a double-double against Sacramento on Wednesday, and on Sunday he had 15 points and 12 assists, another double-double on 7 of 13 shooting. I like his demeanor. I like the pace at which he plays. He plays with confidence. He doesn't show any fear. And I'm just really impressed with what I see from him. And afterwards, Chauncey Billups talked about Mays. Yeah, props to Sky. He's one of those guys that makes watching the Trailblazer games very enjoyable. I just can't wait to see him play again. I like young guys who get an opportunity to make the most of it. And he has. His G League contract, his two-way deal was converted into a full NBA contract. So props to Skylar Mays for making the most of his opportunity and playing good basketball. And now he's locked in for the year. Love to see that. Now, I mentioned the free throw disparity where the Lakers, they made their hay at the foul line. I mean, big time at the foul line in that game. They shot 30 of 37 from the foul line. The Blazers just 7 of 9. And the Blazers only took one foul shot in the second half. I think it was on a technical. So plus 23 at the foul line for the Lakers. And Coach Billups was asked about the free throw disparity after the game. Yeah. I thought the Lakers deserved the foul shots. They were the aggressor. And, you know, the officials normally will award the more aggressive team. Their guards did a good job of attacking the paint, and they did a really good job of getting the ball in position for Anthony Davis to work down low and do what he does. And I thought they got some quality minutes from Hachimura. And how about former Trailblazer? And it's a little bit frustrating to watch, but Cam Reddish had 10 points in the first half, finished with 18 points. He, too, was aggressive, connected on 7 of 10 from the floor. So the Lakers dominated the foul line in that game Sunday, but a lot of that was due to their aggressiveness. So, you know how I feel about the officials. I think they all stink all the time, and I don't like the inconsistency, but I have no issue with the game on Sunday because the Lakers were more aggressive. They utilized their size to their advantage, and they capitalize on those opportunities. I don't know what more you can ask for. Now, a couple of the young guys, Jabari Walker, really Walker, and I would say Walker has been definitely a breath of fresh air. Tamani Kamara also, he played 24 minutes in that game on Sunday. Jabari Walker got 18. And the energy and the effort that those two guys play with is tremendous. But they also got one of the G League guys who got called up after having a chance to play against the South Bay Lakers with the Rip City Remix. Duop Reith, 14 minutes, 11 points, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds. And he made 3 of 8 from downtown. He was terrific. And after the game, Billups was asking about Duop and Jabari and their play. Here's what he had to say. Yeah, I love hearing that from Coach Billups. You can see easily the type of players that Billups likes. It's the guys that play hard and have that mentality to go out there and get after it. And there was a couple times during the game where Billups walked over to give Jabari a high five or to kind of dap him up, like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I like that. And I think it was Brooke Olsendam who asked this question, but she wanted to know if Duop could have played that well like he did in the game on Sunday against the Lakers without that G League experience against South Bay, the Lakers. Here's the response from Billups. There you go. There's Coach Billups. So credit to the youngsters. And I mentioned multiple guys stepping up to make game-winning plays. Jeremy Grant, 41 minutes, 23 points. Being aggressive and answering the call from Billups to be more of a ball hog and look for his offense, especially with Anthony Simons out of the lineup. DeAndre Ayton, 34 minutes, 6 of 10 from the floor. He finished with 12 points, a couple of blocks, 7 rebounds. Matisse Thybulle, 14 points. I think that's the most he scored in the Trailblazer uniform. He connected on 4 of 8 from downtown. Skylar Mays, 33 minutes, 15 points, 12 assists. And Shaden Sharp, 19 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds on 7 of 15 shooting. He was 3 of 6 from downtown. He did have some mistakes out there with 7 turnovers. So not the sharpest or cleanest game from Shaden, but that's part of the process of growing. He played 42 minutes of action. Tamani Kamara, great defense off the bench, 24 minutes, a couple of points, 2 assists, 6 rebounds. But again, a lot of the stuff that Kamara does doesn't go down the stat sheet with his hustle and his effort. Jabari Walker, 8 points, 18 minutes, 4 rebounds, an assist, a steal on the block. Just great hustle from him. Duop Reith, 14 minutes, 11 points. And Bouye, able to contribute 6 points on 3 of 6 shooting in 12 minutes of action. So, again, that's what I like to see. Team ball, multiple guys involved, multiple guys making game-winning plays and putting the Trailblazers in a position to win games. And if they win, that's great. If not, then that's okay too. Because, again, it's all about player development. It's all about the guys learning how to play the way that Chauncey Billups wants them to play. And what I care most about is they are number 9 in the league in defensive rating right now. Number 9. They went from basically dead last, and right now they're a top 10 defense. That's pretty awesome. That's something to celebrate. And I know that there are a lot of you who aren't down with Chauncey, but you got to give credit where credit is due. If we're going to, hammer on Chauncey or clown on him when he's not getting the job done, you got to give him props when he does get the job done. And so far, we're seeing more structure on offense, and we're definitely seeing more structure and accountability on defense. Nowhere near where they need to be, but we're seeing progress. And for a young team, and not just a young team, but a team that's young and also a shuffling of lineup with a number of guys out with injury. Robert Williams done for the year. Malcolm Brogdon out with a hamstring strain. Scoot Henderson out with a bone bruise. Anthony Simons, thumb surgery. Those are key players. And yet the Blazers are going out there and playing competitive basketball. So it's good. I'm enjoying it. I think it's fun. And if they're going to continue to improve and grow and provide entertaining moments throughout the season, sign me up for that. Okay, you can join us on the YouTube stream. You can take a look at Chris and I. We're beautiful people. Just go to youtube.com and go to our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. Subscribe to the page, and all of our local shows are live streaming. That's Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, Blazers Game Day with Chad Doing and Chris Burkhardt, Fifth Quarter with Chad Doing and Chris Burkhardt, and Courtside Mondays with Chris Burkhardt. It's all there. So you can check out what's going on in studio. You can take part in our YouTube chat. You can listen to us on the go. So we're there for you. All right. You want to hit me up on Twitter, you can do so. You'll find me there at Chad in Rip City. All right. Blazers and Utah Jazz tonight, 6 o'clock tip from Salt Lake City. It's coming up here on 620 Rip City Radio. When we come back, we'll give the latest on Scoot Henderson. What's the Scoot? We will talk some football with John McClain coming up at 4:20. It's Game Day here on 620 Rip City Radio. Yeah, Blazer fans, you got to give credit to Chauncey Billups for the effort and for the way that the guys have competed, especially on defense. That type of defensive improvement, it's not a fluke. I want to see how it continues throughout the year. But, if you have guys out there playing hard and communicating and working to contest shots, good things are going to happen. Good things happen when you play hard. And that's what I see from the Trailblazers, aside from that, wacko play at the end of the Laker game where you had DeAndre Ayton and Skylar Mays kind of watch a ball that they thought was going to trickle out of bounds and it responded with a Torian Prince open bucket. You can't let that happen. You never quit on a play. Don't assume. You got to run your ass off and get after the ball. But that's just one little nitpicky moment. Outside of that, I just like the way the guys are competing. It's not pretty. The way they're going to win is ugly, where they kind of muck it up and, really play hard and kind of play at their pace. But good things will happen from teams that continue to play hard. And then as they get guys back in the lineup, we'll see how they continue to improve. But this is part of the process. When you go through a full rebuild, there's going to be hiccups along the way, and it takes time. This is not something that happens overnight, especially with the youngest roster in the NBA. So you have to adjust your expectation. It's not about wins and losses this year. It's not. Not at all. That's just not what it's about. So we keep pressing forward. Utah tonight. It's going to be a busy week for the Blazers. First of a back-to-back tonight, and then they got a game on Friday and Sunday. So a lot of work for the Blazers this week as they continue to press forward throughout the early part of this NBA season. All right, let's get to What's the Scoot.
Team requires the best workstations. What's the Scoot is brought to you by Office Furniture Reborn. Need desks, better office chairs, or just the right file cabinet? Office Furniture Reborn has a huge selection of colors and sizes to choose from. So drop by Office Furniture Reborn's huge showroom just off Pacific Highway in 217 or visit www.officefurniturereborn.com.
All right, so we got an update a couple of days ago from Shams, who initially put the report out, but the ankle sprain for Scoot Henderson is actually a bone bruise. And so the new updated timeline for the Scoot Henderson return will be about 2 to 3 weeks. But that's the beauty of where the Trailblazers are at right now in a rebuilding season. They don't have to rush to get guys back on the floor. And you can err on the side of caution and make sure that guys are healthy when they're out on the floor playing basketball. So I think this is probably the right call. And then for Scoot Henderson, there's a lot of times where players, especially young players, they learn when they're on the floor and they're getting a chance to play. That's the most important thing is, the minutes that you get a chance to get on the floor and compete. And then you get film where you can sit down with the coaches and break it down to look at where you need to improve and make adjustments. But another big element of that is sometimes, for youngsters is when they're not in action, whether they're not playing, they're on the bench watching, or in this case with Scoot, you get a chance to sit back and observe. So important for Scoot to remain engaged while he's at the games, while he's at practice, continue to look at film even when he's not in games so he can continue to grow mentally, emotionally, and just absorb as much information as possible as he continues his NBA journey. And I'm excited for him to come back. He had started to play better basketball in the previous 2 games before the injury. So we were seeing signs of life. And I can't wait till he gets back on the floor and is healthy because I want to watch him continue to grow. And as I mentioned before, there's a big debate. I'm starting Scoot Henderson the entire year. I'm not bringing him off the bench. I didn't draft him at number 3 to come off the bench. He needs to grow, and he needs as much playing time as possible to be able to do that. And I think for him, the best experience not only is to start and to play big minutes, but more importantly, being in that starting lineup so he's going up against the opposing team's best players. So he can learn and learn through the mistakes. Part of growing is being able to get your butt kicked or get dominated and then learn and adjust to the speed of the game, to the quality of players that you're seeing. And as you go through that, you continue to get better and better. That's really what it's all about. So I'm confident that Scoot's going to be just fine. I know people were freaking out probably because the expectations were off the charts, but that's okay. All right, the Trailblazers have lost 3 straight. I mentioned a busy week. Here's what they've got coming up over the next couple of weeks on the schedule. They're in Utah tonight to take on the Jazz. That is a tournament game. They will be back home tomorrow. Cavaliers are in town. 7 o'clock tip from Moda. Friday, Another tournament game, home against the Lakers at Moda Center Friday. Sunday, they host Oklahoma City. Then they move to Phoenix to take on the Suns. Back home on the 22nd to meet the Jazz. After that game Wednesday against the Jazz in Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. Their first look at Damian Lillard, Fear the Deer, with his new team. And then back home Monday for a game against the Indiana Pacers. Well, that's not back home. They're on the road. So let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 5-game stretch there. Milwaukee, Indiana, Cleveland, Utah, and the Clippers all on the road. So that's what's coming up. Some difficult games for the Blazers, and that's okay. But as we've seen with Portland, they've, fight, and they scrap, they claw, and they've been competitive in those games, which is pretty nice. And I want to see more of the youngsters and see what they can do. All right, I bring in my partner, Chris Burkhardt, who's with me. Burkhardt, what's your assessment so far? I think a lot of people think, oh, yeah, does Jody pay you to speak? They think I'm crazy. But my expectations going into the year were not about wins and losses. And I think you're in the same boat. But I'm enjoying what I'm seeing right now. Kind of a mix-mash lineup for Chauncey with all the injuries. But those guys are playing hard for him. Really hard.
Without question. I mean, that's what you want to see right now is the team playing hard. And I think the biggest thing for me, Chad, is showing just those, incremental progress, right? The last few years has been frustrating because you haven't seen it. He's supposed to be a defensive coach. He's supposed to be this, he's supposed to be that. And the team just looked the same all the time. Right now, they're playing good defense. People are hustling. People are showing effort. I'll ask you this because I brought this up during game day in the fifth quarter when I was filling in for you. I was like, if you play the Lakers right now, do you know their identity? I don't think so because they don't really have one, right? You got LeBron, you got AD, but there's no identity. The Clippers, do they have an identity?
No.
But if you play the Nuggets, do they have an identity? You know what you're going to get?
Yes.
And so the Blazers might not be great talent-wise, but for the first time in a long time, I feel like they have an identity.
Mm-hmm.
If I ask you, do the Blazers have an identity? What are you going to get when you play them? Do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, tough, defensive-minded.
Yeah, and I think
scrap.
that's huge. I think that's huge.
It's everything. And that's a good thing. That's what you want. You want those guys to compete and play hard like that. I love it. And the players know it. They can sense it. Even the veterans on the team recognize what they're doing, that they're playing hard and getting after it. In fact, take a listen to DeAndre Ayton talking about this team's calling card. There you go. We play hard. We play hard. That's what we do. I like it. He was also asked about the identity that they're trying to develop. Here's what he had to say. You know what's great about that, Burkhardt? Think about how many teams throughout the course of the NBA season will take nights off or underestimate their opponent. But the Blazers, with their calling card of being tough and playing hard, they're going to catch teams by surprise. Because a lot of teams don't want to deal with that. They don't want to play a team that's willing to just fight.
No, that's how you sneak wins out, man. And it's nice to see. That's how a team goes into Philadelphia and CJ Ellaby leads them to a win on one random night, right? So, no, I like that. This team, I think they are playing hard, and I like the way everyone is talking. Like DeAndre Ayton, talking about, we're going to play hard. We're going to, we're not going to go down easy. Little things like that, that matters. I know people still are upset. People have some people have let the ship sail on Chauncey before, it ever had a chance, right? They just want him gone. He's terrible.
Yeah.
No matter what he does. But you're right. This is the thing. And it comes with the territory to me. If you're going to burn a guy and crucify him for everything he does bad,
Yeah.
when something does happen that does look good, you got to also give credit where credit is due. You can't just continue to crap on the guy just because it's just what you're used to and what you want to do. And so if you watch these games right now and you still think that he's not doing something positive coaching-wise for these young guys, and I'm not saying he's the second coming of Pop or Spo or anything, but if you don't see just those little glimmers that are, hey, that's nice to see, then I don't think you're even trying to see him in the first place.
I agree. In fact, one other thing, a lot of people are loving what they see from Tamani Kamara. Take a listen to DeAndre Ayton talking about Tamani.
And if a team wants to go small and, put a guy his size at the 5, but, he's everywhere on the defensive end. He's boarding for us as well. He's mainly our hustle guy. I'm telling him, I'm like, you're doing things in the league that dudes do the small things to stay in the league. And I'm like, you're doing it in your first year. So I'm like, yeah, I was like, that's pretty good, bro. You being that hustle guy, but not only that, taking care of business on the offensive end, knocking down shots and creating for your teammates. So, he's a wild card, man. And, we just got to make sure we develop him right and make sure he approaches the game the right way every time.
There you go. And that's what they are. They play hard. They're going to fight. And just keep it simple, right? Go out there and can control what you can control. They're not going to have the most talent. They're not going to have the most experience, but you can outwork teams in the NBA. You know it and I know it because a lot of guys take nights off. A lot of guys try to coast through certain parts of the schedule, and the Blazers can be competitive by going out and fighting. And not only that, but celebrate the time. Just enjoy the moment, right? Reason why is because, well, we saw enough bad defense over the last several years in this town to where I think we can sit back and appreciate a team that's willing to defend, that embraces that. And Burkhardt, you know what I think the other nice part is for Coach Billups? This is the first time that he's been in control of this team where I think he's the more dominant personality in the locker room. Without Dame, without the guys that were there, it's now his team. He's got mostly a young team aside from a couple of vets, but it's hard to come in as a new coach with no experience and demand this and demand that when you've got a established star in Damian Lillard. And now Chauncey's got more control. So, yeah, you get more buy-in from the guys like that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a fact. I think you're almost seeing that play out in Milwaukee a little bit because obviously you saw the way things went down with Terry quite quickly. They got a coach that is kind of like, I'm the head of the table, right? Everyone listen to me. And I think you got guys like Giannis are like, what? What are you talking about, bro?
Get out of here.
So yeah, there is that dynamic. I'll continue to use the analogy that I've used since the start of the season, and that is for the first time in his time here, I think Chauncey finally gets to mold the clay.
No question. We'll come back on game day, and when we do, we'll take a listen to Chauncey Billups coming off the loss to the Lakers. Tip-off tonight will be at 6 here on 620 Rip City Radio. We will talk some football with John McClain, Hall of Famer. He's going to be at 4:20. Chris Burkhardt and Chad Doing with you here. Be sure to go to youtube.com, pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620, to join the live stream, and you can take part in the chat. All of our live shows now streaming on YouTube here on 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, Burkhardt, we know that Jimbo is out at A&M, and it looks like, according to reports, UCLA is going to fire Chip Kelly. Jeez.
I think that's stupid. Like,
They crazy.
like, this is not even like Duck Homerism. Like, that guy has had a decent run of consistency at UCLA, which is just not in the best of circumstances when it comes to trying to win. Because Oregon went in and took, LA recruiting by storm, and UCLA was already behind USC. So to go in there and be as consistent as he has been, that school continues to just let coaches go because they think that they're a national title contender. It's wild to me. I wouldn't have fired Chip.
Very interesting. We'll talk a little ball with John McClain coming up at 4:20. It's Blazers game day as we get ready for the tip-off of the Blazers and Kings, which is coming up at 6 o'clock here on 620 Rip City Radio, the first of back-to-back games. Blazers Jazz tonight in Utah. They're home tomorrow against the Cavs with a 7 o'clock tip from Moda Center. If you want to reach out to me on Twitter, you can do so. And just hit me up at Chad in Rip City, at Chad in Rip City. We're going to hear from Chauncey Billups following the Laker game here in just a moment. I do want to give a shout-out. My man Comanche hit me up on Twitter, and he said, Chad, my 7-year-old daughter, Tegan, just realized I had your number and begged me to call you while on the air. I said no, but would tweet you. She's a giggly mess over knowing that I know you and seeing you on YouTube. Well, Tegan, I do know your pops, and I want to give you a shout-out. Tegan, what's up? Thank you for listening. Thank you for checking out the YouTube. Go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. What's up, Tegan? Now, you said your 1-year-old daughter was watching you on YouTube the other night and was saying, Dada.
Yeah, which is why this is blowing my mind because my 1-year-old daughter's name's Tegan.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Tegan.
Yeah.
There you go. We got 2 Tegans checking out the show. All right. We're big with the younger demo, 1 and 7 years of age.
We're getting them, baby. It's only a matter of time this show is going to be on YouTube Kids. Every kid's going to watch it. It's going to be right up there with Ryan's World.
I love it. All right, Tegan, thank you for checking out the show. We appreciate it here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, the Blazers fall by 6 in L.A., 116-110. Here is Coach Billups after the game.
Coach, another close one, another valiant effort. What do you take away from this one?
Man, we played. I thought we played a good game. Really did. We got a lot of great efforts from a lot of guys, man. Complete game from everybody. Everybody contributed. Everybody that got in there played well. Close game. It was a close game. It's just, that they shoot 37 free throws. We shoot 9. That's just tough. It's just tough. It is. We go 7 for 8 in the first quarter. Shoot 1 for the rest of the game. That was on a defensive 3 second. That's tough. That's tough.
What did you think of Skylar?
Sky did good. Sky did a good job. I thought he controlled the game. He controlled the tempo. Got guys shots. Really good game. Only 1 turnover, 12 assists. That's big time.
The free throw disparity, do you think that was them being more aggressive inside or maybe not getting some calls?
I think both teams were aggressive, to be honest with you. It's one of the things we do. We attack the paint, all the time. So I got nothing to say or anything about their aggressiveness, but I know we were aggressive too.
Whenever you play a team, an opponent, they're missing their superstar, is that a missed opportunity?
I think any time you got a close game in the fourth quarter, 1 possession game with a few minutes left, it doesn't matter who misses or makes the game. It's a missed opportunity.
Coach, quite a few new guys out there tonight, so it's good to talk about both. So DeWop today, your thoughts on how he played, and same with Boudier.
Yeah, I thought Wap played a good game. He's a pick and pop 5. So we'll use him that way. Most of the time, I drew up plays for him in the timeout to get the pops because I know they kind of play in a drop. And we did a good job of finding him. He fought like crazy. He had a block shot. He did well. He did well. He did what he does. And I thought Jamari came in and gave us some really good minutes in that first half. He really did. we were kind of struggling. He got the ball going. He got it moving side to side. He, made a shot. He did a good job too. His presence was felt out there.
Was someone like Davis tonight just an example of, a superstar just being able to do things that maybe your guys can't really answer for?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, AD is obviously, he's one of the best players in our game, and sometimes guys like that will get going and we kind of change defenses on him. We trapped him and doubled him some. I thought their penetration from their guards, it really hurt us a lot of times because he was able to get it to AD in the pocket but it was just, he was the best player on the floor and he played well.
Do you think that Duop has a performance like that tonight if he doesn't get that confidence from the G League games?
I think he still could have played well, to be honest with you, Brooke, but obviously, playing that well a couple of nights ago is helpful. It's helpful, and everybody here has so much confidence in him. I wish we had him in a sack game. I wish I value him. I love how he plays. So none of us were surprised about how he played in that remix game. I've just been waiting to kind of have him up here with us.
All right, there's Coach Bills following the Trailblazers loss Sunday to the Lakers. And you can hear it. He's liking what he's seeing from a lot of the guys. And by the way, if you needed a reminder, DeAndre Ayton is better than Yusuf Nurkic. How happy do you think Coach Billups is to have Ayton and not Nurk? Because that Nurk was probably driving him crazy with the antics and everything. The inconsistency, the up and downs, the roller coaster ride.
Without a doubt.
Ayton's been good. He's been real good. Finishes at a high rate. He's been active defensively, providing some leadership for some of the younger guys on the team. I'm down. Could have done without him watching that ball trickle down the sideline and Taurean Prince pick it up, but that's okay. He thought it was going out of bounds, and it was the wrong thought process in the moment, but that happens.
Yeah, and I do think, Chad, I don't think it's talked about enough, but for a guy who is here learning a new system, right? It's got to be real tough because he's been consistent, but it's got to be extra tough because Scoot's gone. Now, Scoot was supposed to be learning a new system, hadn't played in this level before.
Yeah.
So he has to go from the rookie point guard who gets hurt to Skylar Mays, like the point guard that he's supposed to be running pick and rolls with and getting the ball from in the paint is a guy who was on a two-way contract just a few days ago. And then the backup guy who he's getting minutes with, Bouye, like this guy just signed a two-way deal, came up with no practices at all. So for a guy like Ayton to kind of find that groove with no true point guard or vet point guard, like it'd be completely different if, Dame were in that situation or Malcolm were running that constantly and consistently in the starting lineup, but he hasn't been, right? So yeah, it's just it's an interesting little wrinkle there. So I think when you get healthy and you get the feet under Scoot, that I think Ayton will end up being better.
Yeah, and I think what it also shows is sometimes when players are having difficulties with a particular franchise and a guy's been labeled, you might want to investigate what's going on. I think what happened is Ayton was scapegoated by the former coach, Monty Williams. Because Monty Williams knew his job was in jeopardy. And what do people do when they're trying to save their own skin? They throw other people under the bus. Ayton got scapegoated. And that's where things went sideways down in Phoenix. It's one of those situations where it wasn't on the player, it was on the coach. And look at him now. He's happy to be here. He knows he's wanted. It's a good situation.
Yeah, I think it was a weird situation. So I think the team chose Ayton over the coach, which is why Monty was let go because they understood what they had in him, but the damage was already done. And he wanted out. So, yeah, I think you can hear it in the way he talks. Like, the losses aren't bothering him. Like, he's in a situation that's good for him mentally, and that's great.
Yeah, and I forget this because he's such a big man, a large human being. He's young. DeAndre Ayton is a young man.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just doesn't look like a young man.
No.
It's good. It's kind of got that Robert Parrish thing going on. There are certain players that they just looked old their entire career. He's one of those guys, but he's playing well. I like him. All right, we'll come back on game day. We'll keep things rolling. We still have a scoreboard report. We'll let you know what's going on in the association. We'll get to that later in the show. We have our keys to the game coming up later. We'll talk some football with John McClain, Hall of Famer, coming up at 4:20. That's Chris Burkhardt. I'm Chad Doing. Tip-off, Blazers and Utah Jazz coming up at 6 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, Burkhardt, the latest batch of college football playoff rankings coming out here in just a few minutes on ESPN. Here's my prediction for what I think the top 4 or the top 6 will be. I've watched Georgia the last couple of weeks. They've beaten Missouri and then Ole Miss, and they've looked dominant in doing so. Like almost like they flipped a switch and just went to a different level. And I watched that Georgia game this weekend. I'm like, I'm not sure anyone can beat that Georgia team. So I think Georgia, on the strength of the last 2 wins, improves their resume. They'll jump to number 1. I think Michigan, coming off the win over Penn State's at number 2. Ohio State, with a less impressive Saturday, at number 3 after being at number 1 for the last couple of weeks. I think FSU is number 4 with Washington and Oregon, your first 2 teams out. That's how I think that's going to go. And then I think Texas, Alabama after that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Georgia's clicking right now. I do think that Oregon is right up there with them in the sense that the eye test, the 2 teams that are playing the best football right now.
Yep.
However, Oregon has a loss right now, and that has to mean something. I mean, it will all work itself out in the end, so people don't get up in arms with these rankings right now. But right now, yeah, that's the 4 that I would go out with, Washington and Oregon being the first 2 out for sure.
All right, let me ask you about the doomsday scenario that is very possible, and it's one that Joel Klatt and many others have discussed. Who does the committee select under these circumstances? Michigan is your undefeated Big Ten champ. FSU is your undefeated ACC champ. They're both in. Then Alabama wins out. They're your one-loss SEC champ. Texas wins out. They are your one-loss Big 12 champ with a win over Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You've got Ohio State, one-loss non-conference champ, and Georgia, one-loss non-conference champ. Now, according to Klatt, he said if those scenarios play out, your third team in has to be Texas because they beat Bama in Tuscaloosa, which means he thinks the final 2 would be either Oregon or Alabama. Who's the committee selecting under those circumstances? They're going to take Bama, one-loss SEC champ, or Oregon, one-loss Pac-12 champ?
In those circumstances, you know exactly what the committee's going to do, and that's unfortunate. They're going to take a one-loss SEC champ. Like,
can you imagine them selecting Oregon and they leave the SEC out?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
It's not happening. That's not going to happen. That would be the absolute chaos situation right there.
But that is where, and I've said this to you a few times, that is where I find these narratives that they put on all year long to be so frustrating and so annoying, because all year long, all the talk has been about how the best football has been in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 has been great all year long, except when it comes to voting. And then all of a sudden the Pac-12 is treated like the afterthought that it is. So when Beaver fan and Cougar fan gets upset with the situation right now, and they rightfully should be because their future is murky, it's very easy to understand why the other 10 schools wanted out, because the respect the Pac-12 gets, even in a good year for the conference, it's just not there.
Who do you like? Oregon State, Washington this weekend, 4:30 kick from Corvallis. The Beavs right now a 1-point favorite.
Yeah, and the thing is that line keeps shifting too. It's all over the place in Corvallis, where I believe they are preparing for a standing room only. I mean, it's going to be an atmosphere. The thing is, Washington is really good, so I think Penix is gonna have a day. But so is DJU. So DJU is going to be able to battle offensively. It might be similar to that USC game. Difference between the USC game and this one is over the last few weeks. I mean, you aren't going to be able to run the ball like you have been against Oregon State. They got a real good front seven. They're going to pound it. So just when Washington thinks they have a run game back, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so I think defensively, I think they're going to get some stops. And yeah, it might be a 3-point game, but I think OSU might get the upset here.
I looked at the latest strength of schedule rankings right now. The other thing working in Bama's favor, they're number 2 in the country in strength of schedule. The Ducks got a boost this past weekend because they played USC and won, but also Texas Tech, who they beat earlier in the year, beat Kansas. And Kansas has a pretty good team. So Oregon's up to number 52 in strength of schedule. Florida State's at 37. So we'll keep an eye on that too.
Strength of schedule is also weird too. Like, oh, you see Texas Tech is a weak win. Yeah, well, Texas Tech hasn't looked good since that game because they lost their quarterback. So it's just like, there's so much that plays into it, man.
I agree. I'm just saying that the committee will look at that as another way to knock the Pac-12 down.
Yeah, this is where I can't stand it. Like so many people, and I think maybe the committee people are like that too. It's one way or the other, right? You're either resume or your eye test or your whatever the computer says. Like, no, it needs to be a mix of everything, right? Like you can say okay, Texas's resume this, but eye test tells me this about Oregon. Like, would you pick Oregon over Texas on a neutral site right now? I would. Like, Oregon's playing incredible, right? So everything has to mix in here, and this is why this 12-team thing can't come soon enough. It cannot come soon enough because if you look through your rankings right now and you get to number 12, Chad, and you're stuck, okay, who's going to be left out? You're like, okay, now there's arguments there, but it's a little more cut and dry than, are you leaving out the SEC champ or the Pac-12 champ? Like that's tough.
All right, key games to keep an eye on this weekend. Texas will play at Iowa State. It would be very helpful for Oregon fans if Texas were to take a loss to knock them out of contention for the playoff because, remember, one loss and they got the win at Alabama. That's going to be a real problem if Alabama wins out. Other games to keep an eye on. Washington, number 5 in the country right now, against Oregon State, number 12. And we'll see where those two teams are at in the playoff rankings here in just a few moments. Right now, the Beavs are up to a 2.5-point favorite. That's wild to me. 4:30 on ABC. Oregon, right now, number 6 in the playoff rankings at Arizona State, 1 o'clock kick on Fox. Ohio State will play Minnesota, so essentially a bye week for them. Utah's at Arizona. Arizona still has an outside shot at potentially getting into the Pac-12 title game. They're favored by a point. That's at 11:30 on the Pac-12 network.
Talk about a team playing good ball, too. Oof.
Michigan's at Maryland, 9 o'clock on Fox. Alabama's got a bye. They play Chattanooga. And the other game to keep an eye on is number 11, Louisville, who plays at Miami. Louisville is one of those teams that could play an important role because they're likely going to play Florida State in the ACC title game. And it would be very helpful to have Florida State get out, to have them take a loss and they're out of the mix. But if they remain unbeaten, they're in. That's just how that's going to go. It's all good. It's all good, and the playoff rankings are going to be released here in a couple of minutes. We'll keep things rolling here on Game Day. We'll talk football with John McClain here in about 20 minutes, and tip-off with the Blazers and Jazz coming up at 6. Chris Burkhardt and Chad Doing with you here on 620 Rip City Radio. Be sure to go to YouTube.com. Go to our homepage right now, 620 Rip City Radio, and you can pull up our homepage and join us on the live stream and take part in the YouTube chat. All right, correction. We're getting stroked by ESPN tonight. They're going to play this basketball game, and then at 6 o'clock, they're going to reach the playoff rankings. Come on, man. We care more about the college football playoff rankings than we do some stupid basketball game. Be better, ESPN. Be better.
Regular season college basketball.
Oh,
Come
just
on.
killing me already. Gosh dang it. What do you think about the Bees being a 2.5-point favorite over Washington? That's crazy. I did not expect that.
No, I think that's interesting. They're giving them that home field advantage, right? And
Could be a sign of respect from the odds makers in terms of what Jonathan Smith is doing, too.
yeah, I also think odds makers understand, too. I mean, who's been playing almost better football the last few weeks? Oregon State's look good. Washington State's look susceptible. Or Washington, excuse me.
All right, here's a question I have for Blazer fans. And Burkhardt, I want you to have a selection here. I've got 3 items up for bid. What's been the most surprising element of the Trailblazers season thus far? I've got 3 things. So you tell me which of the 3 you think has been the most surprising. And then we'll talk football coming up here in 15 minutes with John McClain. So number 1, in no particular order, the emergence and development of Shaden Sharp. What's impressed me with Shaden is that in the preseason, he struggled, didn't look like he was ready to be a starter. And then shortly after the season began, Scoot Henderson and Anthony Simon suffer injuries. When Anthony went out, it was Coach Billups who made the decision to start Shaden Sharp. And there were discussions on whether it be Malcolm or if it be Shaden. And Billups made the decision to go with Shaden because he wanted his young guys, Scoot and Shaden, to get time to grow and to learn how to play the NBA game. And obviously that was the right decision. But the reason why it's been so impressive to me is just the maturity in which he's played with. Now, he's far from perfect. He has 7 turnovers against the Lakers. But he's been a good decision maker for the most part. He's had the ball in crucial moments. He's been a facilitator for his teammates. And I love watching the veterans on the team embrace Shaden and allow him to take the lead on the team late in ball games. And he's showcasing what he can do on offense. I think he's at a point right now where he doesn't understand how good he is. And as he understands his game a little bit more, he'll know when to take off, when to pull up, when to continue to get around the corner and attack the rim. Like, he had that play where he took off from the free throw line and basically teabagged Anthony Davis on Sunday. And it's like, dude, what are you going to do? You're going to jump over him? And that just comes from learning and understanding what you can and cannot do. So Shaden Sharp's development is number 1. It's been impressive and fun to watch. Number 2 on the list of most impressive things early in this season, the Trailblazers' defensive improvement. And it's been in a number of categories. They've been great at limiting teams on three-point percentage, steals, the overall defensive rating, which is top 10, number 9 in the league right now. They appear to have an understanding of what they need to do on that end of the floor. They have longer, better athletes to play defense. There's a willingness to defend, and guys responding to the wishes of their coach. The defensive improvement, based on what we're seeing right now compared to the last several seasons here in Portland, is remarkable because this team was horrendous on defense. They didn't want to defend. They didn't try to defend. They didn't have an understanding of how to defend. There was no communication. They just were getting the doors blown off. It was embarrassing. And I can't take a team seriously if you're in the bottom 5 defensively, but now the Portland Trailblazers, as we sit today, number 9 in the NBA defensively. And number 3, the emergence of Tamani Kamara. He could end up being the steal of the trade. I didn't know what to expect from Tamani Kamara, but he's got Kevin McHale / Scottie Pippen type length on his arms, and the energy and the effort and the tenaciousness on defense that we're seeing from him. Which of those 3 would it be for you? What's been the most surprising element for you, Burkhardt?
Well, I think it's actually pretty easy answer for me because with Shaden Sharp, you wanted it. You wanted to see this progression, right? You wanted to see him take the ball and run with it. You also expected it, right? Tamani, there was no expectation.
None.
So anything here that you're getting is good. Defense, you wanted it. You knew it needed to be better. You did not have any idea if it could actually happen. So the fact that is leaps and bounds already looking better than it did last year with a very, very young team at the moment, and you're getting good play from guys like Tamani. And I think Shaden has been better than advertised on the defensive end as well, showing some hustle. Jabari has been playing well as well. I think that, to me, is the biggest surprise of the season, is the improvement on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. I didn't expect it at all. I thought they were going to be near the bottom of the pack once again in defense, and so far they have shocked me in that department. And it's with a bunch of different guys on the floor. I mean, they've been decimated by injuries so far.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Everything will level out eventually, right? Because you're still early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
But a little over tenth of the way through the season, that's enough to start seeing trends, right? Yep. And the defense is trending upward. So if this thing buoys out and they start to take their hits, but they end the year, Chad, say they're 18th, 19th, that's still an improvement from ending the year every single year. Yep, 29th in defense again.
It's great. I'm pumped, man. That's my selection. Defensive improvement's been the most pleasant thing to watch and the biggest surprise for me. And those are all good items. Shaden Sharp's emergence, Tamani Kamara out of nowhere. But for me, it's the defense.
I also think a dark
terrific.
horse in all that is I think Jabari is a dark horse in all that, because he's been playing really well too. Has been getting minutes here and there, but I think he's like another year away. Like this entire year, continuing to build, get bigger. He's obviously bulked up. I think by next year, if he continues the trend he's on, he might become a very, very reliable rotation player.
I agree. It's fun, man. It's fun. I'm enjoying this. It sounds so corny, but I'm actually just having fun watching this young team develop. It's
yes, I've been saying.
I don't
that
mean
as well.
for that to be a cheeseball statement, but I am. I like the new storylines. It's refreshing. It's new, and I like watching young guys go out there and play their butt off and to compete and try to earn more minutes. All right, let's take a look around at a very busy night in the association.
It's time for a Blazers Game Day scoreboard report, powered by Columbia Heating and Cooling, raising your expectations of comfort.
All right, 3 games that have just gotten underway. First quarter in Charlotte, the Heat and Hornets. Miami leads 2-1 in the first. First quarter down in Detroit, the Hawks on top of the Pistons 5-4. And early first quarter in Philadelphia, Pacers lead the Sixers 7-4. Games coming up later on tonight. In Brooklyn at 4:30. The Magic and Nets, and Brooklyn favored by 2.5. Paolo Banchero averaging 18 points and 6 rebounds. Mikal Bridges, 20 points, 6 boards, and 3 assists per game. In OKC, the Spurs and Thunder, that game's on TNT. Oklahoma City favored by 10.5. Victor Wembanyama, 19 points, 8 boards, and 2 assists. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander killing it so far this year. 29 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists per game. 5 o'clock in New Orleans. The Mavericks and Pelicans, Dallas favored by 4.5. Luka having a big year, 32 points, 8 boards, and 8 assists. And Brandon Ingram so far, 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists. At 6 o'clock in Utah, the Trailblazers and Jazz. Lauri Markkanen averaging 24 points per game to go along with 8 rebounds. And Jeremy Grant, 22 points, 4 boards, and nearly 2 assists. The Utah Jazz favored by 6.5. The second half of the TNT doubleheader, the Clippers are in Denver to take on the Nuggets. Denver favored by 4.5. Paul George averaging 23 points, 5 boards, 3 assists. And Nikola Jokic, 29 points, 13 boards, and 8 assists per game. Denver 8-2 on the year. The Clippers just 3-6. 7 o'clock tip down in San Francisco. Timberwolves and Warriors. Minnesota favored by 2.5. Anthony Edwards, 28 points a game. Draymond Green, 9 points, 5 boards, and 6 assists. And it's 7:30 tonight in Los Angeles. The Grizzlies and Lakers. LA favored by 6.5. Memphis just 2-8. The Lakers at 5-5. Desmond Bane averaging 26 points a game. And Anthony Davis, a double-double. 23 points, 12 boards, and just under 4 assists per game for the Lakers. And that is your scoreboard report. And in case you missed it, the college football playoff ranking show will not be at 4 like it normally is, but coming up after Duke and Michigan State on ESPN. So it'll be at 6 o'clock tonight. And we'll see where Oregon and Washington sit going into a big weekend once again of college football. in this crazy finish where there are multiple teams still alive for a playoff berth and only 4 spots. And as Burkhardt said, next year is going to be epic because they're going to go to 12 teams, and it's going to be awesome. I can't wait. We needed this for years, and now we're finally going to get a 12-team format. So good.
Yep. I love it. I still would love a single site for the national championship game every year. I know I was Rose Bowl guy and you're not, but even if you did one of your nice stadiums that you love, say you put it at Allegiant or something, wouldn't it just be nice to have a place that just every single year, college football culminated, one spot, CFP game, you knew? Oh, I think that'd be sweet.
I would be okay if they wanted to take the Rose Bowl and just have it be the site for the national championship game. But I'm also practical. Arizona's probably the best spot if they're going to do it because of the layout of the city and the surrounding area. It would be a great host site. The only problem with Pasadena is that you got the traffic issues down there.
Oh, for sure.
Getting to the stadium's not as easy. It's kind of a pain, but
I just think it'd be cool to just every year just pick a site, have it, and that's how you get the mystique of the Rose Bowl and the classic Cotton Bowls, right? Things like that.
But the SEC would never go for that because they'd be like, "Wait, what? Football only matters on our side of the country." They would want it in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. You know that's how it would go. It's what they would do. But I'm for it, man. If they want to pick a site, it should be the same. The Super Bowl. Do you think the Super Bowl's cool playing in different cities? I guess so. It's kind of nice to have in different cities, but it would be kind of nice to have one site, like maybe Las Vegas or something, to do it every year.
Yeah,
down
but
there.
at least in football, you only have a handful of teams to pick and who gets the host. I don't know. I just like the mystique that bowl games can bring.
All right, we'll come back. We'll talk with John McClain, who's a Hall of Famer and one of the best writers to ever cover the NFL. We'll get his take on the A&M job. We'll talk about C.J. Stroud. What about the Buffalo Bills? Are they in panic mode after that loss last night? And a lot of people are asking me, yes, last night was as much fun I've had watching a Bronco game in like 8 years. And it took me like 2 hours to unwind and go to bed. It was awesome. That was a big-time victory for Denver, who is now squarely back into a playoff race in the AFC, and their season has been flipped around. It's amazing. That's the NFL. 2 weeks, you can feel like everything's over, and 2 weeks, you can feel like everything's turned around again. It's great. John McClain coming up next. All right, time to talk a little football. Our next guest is one of my favorites in the business. He's a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, longtime writer and now a radio and podcast grinder. My pleasure to welcome John McClain back to the show. Good afternoon, John. I appreciate your time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you on. I wanted to start out. I got a couple of college football questions for you. Texas A&M has fired Jimbo Fisher, and they're now looking for a new coach. Dan Lanning was among the names mentioned for the job shortly after the news broke, John. And I'm wondering, are the names like Lanning or Mike Elko, Lane Kiffin, and others, are those agent leaks trying to gain leverage for their guys?
Well, if it's not, it should be. There's nothing else Lanning could do at a time like this. He's trying to win and get in the college football playoffs. What is he going to say? Yeah, I'll talk to him. Of course he's not. And he may not. But he's going to get a big raise out of it because he deserves it. And A&M, I don't know if they're going to go the big splash again. They pursued Bo Schembechler at one time. He used them to get a big contract. A lot of people think Mike Elko at Duke, who was their defensive coordinator, he would be a natural fit. Their dream candidate is Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, because he went to A&M. He's a Texan. The Aggies will pay more than he's going to make with the Lions, but I'll guarantee you the Ford family is not going to let him get away, and he's going to end up with a humongous contract extension.
Well, I tell you what, don't you like the job that Dan Campbell has done? They have an identity. They're tough. Their offensive line play's been great. They've revived their quarterback. I love watching Campbell. He's fun.
He was fun to see on Hard Knocks. And he was a tough guy. People made fun of him at his introductory news conference when he's talking about how physical they'd be. They bite him in the knee if they had to. But people learned about him watching Hard Knocks last year. He's sincere. He's emotional. His players trust him. He has two great coordinators. Ben Johnson on offense is going to be the hottest coordinator in the offseason. Aaron Glenn, a 15-year defensive back from Texas A&M. In fact, maybe they consider Aaron Glenn. But they're fun. I think it would be great if the Detroit Lions got in the Super Bowl. It's hard to believe, but in the 50s, they actually won 2 championships with a coach, Buddy Parker, who we're finally putting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And they haven't won but one playoff game since the 50s. I just think it would be a great story.
It would be a great story. Do you think A&M will reach out to Coach Prime?
No, I don't. I think he's only coached 1 year there. It's all gone backward. I think the team that'll reach out to him is when Jerry Jones is done with Mike McCarthy, which could be after this year if he continues to fail in the playoffs. I could see Jerry reaching out to Deion because he knows him so well. Don't know. Deion swears he's not leaving college, but I do not see A&M going after him. He doesn't have enough of a resume.
We're talking with Hall of Famer John McClain. C.J. Stroud has been great and a lot of fun to watch, and I really loved seeing how his teammates respond to him, John. I mean, did you see this coming? What do you think has been the key to his success thus far?
Yeah, I'd love to say I saw this coming. Nobody saw this coming, including the Texans. When they beat Indianapolis in the last game of the season, they lost the first pick to Chicago, and all the fans here, oh my God, we've lost the chance to get Bryce Young.
Yep.
So C.J. Stroud, they liked him. He fell into their laps. He's being coached great. He's a hard worker. People love his personality. And he's not just dumping the ball off. He's second in the NFL in average yards per attempt. He's first in yards per game. There's no rookie in history who's done that through 10 games. And Sunday, they're the first team since the 98 Colts, when Peyton Manning was a rookie, to have at least a 350-yard passer, 150-yard rusher, and 150-yard runner. And they're doing this with all these new players. They start 5 rookies, sometimes 6. And on offense, they had 10 first-year players, which tells me Nick Caserio ought to be a candidate to the NFL executive of the year.
You know, I like the layered throws that he's making. It looks to me like he's processing well at the line of scrimmage, but of course, I'm not a coach. What are you hearing in regards to his understanding and feel for the nuance of the game?
It was so funny because when he took that S2 cognition test and it leaked and he scored low, and that test said, well, he can't diagnose, and then now he's diagnosed as great. And his offensive line, he's had 3 left tackles, 3 left guards, 4 centers, and 3 right tackles because of injuries. Only the right guard has been there all along. And despite that, he still is playing great. And they haven't run the ball very well till they just did in Cincinnati for the first time, so he hasn't had help from a running game. And he's making these receivers. Noah Brown, he comes from the Cowboys after 6 years, an afterthought. He's at 155 and 172 the last 2 games. And they played without their starting running back, starting receiver, and it doesn't matter who's in there. He's the first rookie in history to lead his team to back-to-back, come-from-behind victories in the last 2 minutes. Every week we marvel at things Stroud does. And I really like talking to him because when he's in front of the group, what he says is very informative and analytical. And we like that, of course.
Yeah, it's terrific. I really like his demeanor. And what kind of a coach is DeMeco Ryans, and what's been the secret sauce for him? Because the guys I know down in Houston, John, they all really like this guy a lot.
I've known DeMeco since the day after he was drafted in 06, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. And everybody knew he was going to leave the 49ers after 2 years as a coordinator, 7 years with Kyle Shanahan. And he was going to take Bobby Slowick, a Shanahan protege, with him. They had a deal where whichever one got hired first as a head coach would take the other one. Slowick's done a tremendous coaching job. When Ryans was hired, and people are like, who would want to go to Houston? They had 2 one-and-done coaches. That organization's in disarray. Well, anybody that watched them play knew they coaches did a terrible job. All these national media people killing them, they didn't watch any Texans games. Why would they? They were awful. So DeMeco comes in here. Every team wanted him. The Broncos made 2 runs at him. He signed a 6-year contract. He said this was his dream job, not just because he played here, but his wife's from here. They're building a dream home here before he got a head coaching job, and they started a home for wayward boys during the pandemic year. And so he said it's a natural fit. When he had his first news conference, they brought in a lot of former players as well as current. He blew away everybody. All those former players walked out. We interviewed them. They all wanted to put on the pads and go hit somebody. Right now, he and Dan Campbell are the leading candidates, according to Vegas, for Coach of the Year.
That's impressive. I've got 3 more questions for you. You know, the Bills today fired offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey. Was this a desperation move by McDermott?
I think it was. I thought he might fire special teams coach. You talk about giving away a game last night.
Yikes.
Missed the field goal. Oops, too many men on the field. I'm surprised the special teams coach's head wasn't rolling. Dorsey had been under a lot of fire because he won't run the ball and because they put so much pressure on Josh Allen.
Ton.
He's putting pressure on himself and committing way too many turnovers. So now maybe Joe Brady, who did a great job at LSU, then he's with the Saints. Carolina hired him. They fired him after 2 years, and I didn't even know he was in Buffalo. But at one point, he's a boy wonder. When the Texans were changing jobs, head coaches 2 years ago, I think they interviewed Brady. So I can't wait to see what he does, and I'll guarantee he's going to put a lot more emphasis on running the ball.
No question. John, the Jets have gone 36 possessions without a touchdown, but Coach Saleh continues to go with Zach Wilson. I'm wondering, is ownership making him play Wilson to see what they have in him?
When he went in front of the media 2 weeks ago and they asked him about Zach Wilson, and he said, I plead the fifth. And then they, well, why would you say something like that? And he changed his tune. It's almost like he was being made to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if their goal is to get a high number 1 pick, they should stick with Zach Wilson. And I can't imagine any of the players have faith in him. Rodgers said he's coming back. Rodgers, if he comes back and plays behind that awful offensive line, he may regret it.
All right, final question for you, John, something you're familiar with. Lance Berkman, Cynthia Cooper, and Warren Moon inducted into the Houston Sports Hall of Fame, which is really cool. And Moon has Northwest ties. He played at Washington, also played for the Seahawks, but he really shined with the Oilers and Jack Pardee. Can you take me back? How did he end up with Houston after multiple great years in the CFL?
He still lives in Seattle. I'm the chairman of our selection committee, and we surprise those people when they find out. They have to go through family members, get them somewhere where you can jump out and surprise them. And I surprised Moon, and it was great. It was a great experience. He got emotional. I've never seen Warren Moon emotional. He's one of the Mr. Cool players I've ever seen. When he was a free agent, he went to Edmonton after he was the MVP of the 78 Rose Bowl. He was not drafted. And then after he helped win 5 Grey Cups, he was an unrestricted free agent, really the first one. And a bunch of teams were interested. It came down to Seattle and Houston. And everybody's, well, he's going to Seattle. He played at UW. He's got a home there. But the Oilers made him the highest paid player in history. Think about this. 5 years, $5 million.
Wow.
That made him the highest paid player in history. 1984. Now that's tip money for some of these guys. And Warren came here, and they struggled at first, but they drafted an offensive lineman high, and then he turned it around. He was great. And the salary cap came. They were not prepared. They traded him to Minnesota, and he was great there. I presented him to the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee, and I was there, and I told him in Detroit, I had him on the phone because I needed quotes. When they called out the names, I said, "You made it." And he almost had a wreck. And I was there with him in Canton when he got his gold jacket. So it's been fun. I told him last week, we've known each other for 40 years.
That is a long time, John. I always enjoyed watching him play and the way he carried himself. And you've been watching quarterbacks for a long time, John. Have you ever seen a guy where every time the ball comes out of his hand, it's like the tightest, most beautiful spiral of all time? He threw a pretty ball.
I write my columns now for my radio station, sportsradio610.com, no paywall. And I'm doing a column with him, the greatest quarterback in Houston history, talking about C.J. Stroud. He's been following his career closely. And I'll tell you a good story. When Steve McNair was a rookie, he was not playing. And he signed a 7-year contract. They signed Chris Chandler, another Washington player, to be caretaker. And I asked when they got rid of Chandler why they didn't bring in Warren Moon as a backup late in his career. Warren's about 45. And the GM told me, he said, the problem with that, in practice, every pass Warren throws is going to be perfect. Their throws is not going to be. And the veterans are going to say, well, why are we playing Warren Moon instead of this young guy? Because Moon's passes are perfect.
That's a good story. I like it. That's the Warren Moon I know. Well, John, always great respect for you. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, you're grinding, but you're one of the best, and always appreciate your insight. I hope you have a good evening and continue to enjoy that story down there. Your Houston Texans are right now squarely in the playoff mix. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm shocked. People say, are you shocked? I say, no, I'm flabbergasted. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it. There's John McClain, Hall of Famer, talking a little football. Flabbergasted. All right, we'll come back, and we got to continue to set the table for you for the game tonight. We got our keys to the game coming up here before the end of the show. Chris Burkhardt and I are with you. Tip-off is at 6. Curtis Long will have the Trailblazer pregame show, which is coming up at 5. And then Chris and I are back for the 5th quarter. My man Chris is a grinder, too, just like John McClain. All right, it's game day here on 620 Rip City Radio.
You want the truth? It's time.
Has come in and played his tail off, and he had his two-way deal converted to a full NBA contract. He's a good role player, smart. I like his demeanor, plays at a good pace, back-to-back games with double-doubles, and he's being asked to pick up a much larger role with Malcolm Brogdon out, where he's had to step in and start. A really big fan of Skylar Mays, and I'm very happy for him to get the opportunities he has. And also, it's the calling card we talked about, but the Blazers do play hard. Listen to DeAndre Ayton.
We play hard. We don't lay down for nobody. We gonna fall down punching. I can tell you that. And that's why we can wake up every day and just say, we did what we can, but go back and learn to see the things that we couldn't control and try to fix some things before it get out of hand. But other than that, we felt that we played hard. We did what we were supposed to do. Shots wasn't falling, but we did everything Coach asked us, and Coach was happy about the game. And it puts a good feeling in your body to move on to the next.
Yeah, bingo. They play hard. They play hard. All right, we have a pair of tickets. Here's what we're going to do over the next 15 minutes. Final segment after we give our keys to the game. We got a pair of tickets for the Lakers game that's coming up on Friday. We'll give those away in the final segment. And right now we got a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson, who's going to be at the RV Style Resorts Amphitheater on September 28th. Lainey Wilson, RV Style Resorts Amphitheater on September 28th. If you'd like a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson, call now. First caller through gets a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. First caller through, 503-248-0620 gets a pair of tickets for Lainey Wilson at the RV Style Resorts Amphitheater. Call now. And then coming up here in a few minutes, we'll give away a pair of tickets for the Blazers and the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, that's what we're looking at tonight. Malcolm Brogdon is still out. Scoot Henderson's going to be out a couple of more weeks. Let's take a look at that latest injury situation for your Portland Trailblazers. Brogdon, Henderson, Simons, Williams, all out. Brogdon, I haven't seen the update on him, but it shouldn't be long-term, just a strain of the hamstring. Henderson's out a couple of more weeks with a bone bruise. Anthony Simons, probably another month out after he continues to go through recovery after thumb surgery. And Robert Williams is done for the year. And according to the Blazers, Robert Williams underwent successful right knee surgery to reconstruct a torn ligament in his right knee after he sustained a patellar dislocation. Like, I don't know exactly what a patellar dislocation is, but that sounds painful. Williams is expected to make a full recovery and be ready to roll for next season. So that's where we're at. That's the situation with the Blazers. So Brogdon, Henderson, and Simons, not long-term. Williams is done for the year. What else? Oh, update. The ESPN playoff ranking release show will come up at 6 today because they have basketball game on right now. I think it's Duke and Michigan State. And then after that, they'll have the playoff ranking show. We'll see what happens. Curtis Long will have your Trailblazer pregame show at 5. And the tip-off with the Blazers and Jazz coming up at 6. Don't forget, they're back at it tomorrow. The Cavaliers will be in town at Moda Center. Tip-off at 7. I'll have game day tomorrow starting at 4:30. And a reminder, too, that you can now stream all of our local shows on YouTube by going to youtube.com, pulling up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. You can subscribe to the page, but you'll find our live links right there. It's that simple. We'll come back with keys to the game, and then we're going to have a chance for you to win tickets for the Lakers and Blazers coming up on Friday at Moda Center. So just listen to me for your chance to win. It's Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday here on 620 Rip City Radio.
Time for Chad Doing's Keys to the Game, brought to you by Gresham Toyota. At Gresham Toyota, we stand behind our commitment to have the best Toyota pricing in Oregon with our Swickard Price Promise.
All right, a couple of keys tonight. First off, turnovers. I want to see the Blazers be a little more sure-handed with the basketball, especially from key guys like Shaedon Sharpe. 7 turnovers against the Lakers. He's got to be better with decision-making and play a little more under control. Skylar Mays, part of his double-double on Sunday was terrific. I think he only had 1 turnover in that game. But as a whole, protect the basketball and play at your tempo. Outside of that, continue to grind defensively. DeAndre Ayton says that we play hard. They got to continue to work defensively. I don't care who's on the floor. And then outside of that, let's see what the youngsters can do. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for Jabari, for Tamani Kamara, for Skylar Mays, for Duop Reef, and the rest of the youngsters who are going to get a chance to play while the Blazers are, dealing with multiple injuries. And there's going to be times when they call up on Moses Brown because they lack size now with the injury to Robert Williams. So it's a great opportunity for the youngsters. Chris, you looking for any keys tonight against the Utah Jazz in this all-important in-season tournament game?
Play ball. Like it's hard to have keys to the game when you don't know how many games they're going to win. But if I did have one, I think the fan sentiment is there, and I want to echo it. I think try to find ways to maybe get DeAndre Ayton involved a little bit more.
Yep.
Let him get going.
He was clutch in that game in the fourth quarter against Sacramento with 4 big buckets.
Yeah, he absolutely was. So I want to see a way to get him going. Granted, like I said, when you're playing with, two-way guys and G League guys who just got called up at point guard, it makes his job harder, but I want to see him get going. And then, I just want to see Skylar Mays continue to do his thing. He's been super fun to watch.
All right. Friday, the LA Lakers are going to be in town. I think that's the 17th. Is that correct? Yeah, the 17th of November, Moda Center. And we got a pair of tickets for that game. All of your ticket needs, you can go to trailblazers.com. They got different, ticket packs and different options for you to be able to get into Moda Center and check out this young team as they grow. But we have a pair of tickets to give away right now. So we'll take caller number 7, 503-248-0620. Caller 7 will get a pair of tickets for the Lakers and Blazers Friday at Moda Center. Call now, 503-248-0620. Caller 7, 503-248-0620. Lakers, Blazers, Friday at Moda Center. And don't forget, every Tuesday, it's your chance to win tickets courtesy of your Portland Trailblazers by listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday here on 620 Rip City Radio. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Caller 7 right now gets a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Lakers Friday at Moda Center. All right. So, I'm looking forward to the game tonight. Busy week for the Blazers. As I mentioned before, they got multiple games coming up this week after only 2 games last week, kind of a light week. Able to get some rest, which was nice. They had extra time in L.A. Utah tonight on the road. They play Cleveland tomorrow night at Moda Center. The Lakers Friday night. And then Oklahoma City on Sunday. And the following week, another busy week. Games on Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, and then Monday. So back-to-backs coming up. First of a back-to-back tonight, Cleveland tomorrow. So I want to see how the young guys respond to that situation. So it's good. As I told you, my approach this year is different. I don't have any expectations. I'm just going to sit back and watch. And I would encourage you to do the same. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can get bitter. Or you can be upset they're not winning more games. But all I'm trying to do is just help you for what they're doing right now. Their goal is not to win games this year. That's not the priority. It's player development. That's why Scoot and Shaden are my top 2 priorities. And then after that, we got to pay attention to Chauncey Billups. Are the guys, responding and playing the way he wants them to play? Are we seeing an idea and a structure of what they're trying to do offensively? And defensively, are they same thing? Structure, communication. Are they doing the things that Chauncey Billups wants them to do? And as I mentioned before, number 9 in the league in defensive rating, which is terrific. The real challenge this year is not going to be the defense as much as it's going to be the offense. And as good as they are defensively right now, they're dead last in offensive rating. Dead last. That's a problem. Dead last in offensive rating. Number 9 in defense, but dead last in offense. And part of that's because of the injuries, but also with the players they lost, they just don't have the same type of shooting. And they don't have Ant, their best offensive player. And it goes beyond that. The other key issue right now, it's not just the offense, but the real issue for Portland, they're 28th in the league in three-point percentage. Now, they did have a better three-point shooting night on Sunday against the Lakers, where I think they hit 13 threes. They were plus 27 at the three-point line, but they were minus 23 at the foul line. So the Blazers not only dead last in offensive rating, 28th in the league in three-point percentage, which is bizarre because they've been one of the better three-point shooting teams, really dating back several years with, obviously, Dame and CJ. But they just don't have that now. So that's why I keep going back to the defense and the need for this team, if they want to be competitive, to scrap, to defend. They've got to find different ways to manufacture points, and that can come in different ways. Rebounding well to control the tempo, the steals, your defense creating turnovers, which can lead to easier buckets. That can be important. also just the energy, the effort. This team can't get away with just lollygagging it. That's why they've got the scrap, and you hear Coach talking about that a lot. So watch for that. Watch the effort. Are they fighting, scratching, and clawing, and doing whatever they can to get after it? I think the other thing they can do to continue to help with points, and they did not have success with this on Sunday because they took just 9 free throws, 8 of those in the first half. The second half, they took 1 free throw on a defensive 3-second. Well, that's not good enough. This team needs to be aggressive and attack the rim for 2 reasons. 1, don't settle for the three-point shot because they're not a good three-point shooting team. And 2, by attacking the rim and setting the tone with their aggression early in games, they'll put themselves in a position to get to the free throw line and create some easy points for themselves. That's going to be important. So don't be afraid to muck it up a little bit. Be aggressive, attack the rim, and continue to fight defensively. And I'm having a lot of fun watching that. I'm not worried about playoffs. I'm not worried about the team making a move to put a star next to Dame. It's a totally different mindset. It's nice. It's relaxing. It's enjoyable. And we're back after the game for the 5th quarter. Chris Burkhardt and I. So that's where we're at. That's what we're looking at tonight for the Blazers. This is another tournament game. And so we'll see how they fare out. They won their first tournament game against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Hey, while you're thinking, we got to give a shout out to a friend of the show, loyal YouTube watcher, Rachel.
What's up, Rachel?
She won the tickets.
She did?
She was caller number 7 and shocked that she was caller number 7. And I am crediting YouTube for helping her win. Go YouTube.
I like the YouTube. I like the YouTube mostly when I'm driving around. Bluetooth it through my speakers. Very, very helpful. All right, that's going to do it for Chris and I. We're back after the game for 5th quarter. Curtis Long's got your Trailblazer pregame show coming up next, and tip-off is at 6. We're on after the game with the 5th quarter. So enjoy the game, my friends. We'll talk to you then. And don't forget the playoff rankings release coming up at 6 o'clock on ESPN.